Hi, everybody. I am Dr. Ken Sable.
And I'm Sabine Ramsey. Welcome to The Shift.
So today we're going to talk about struggling with high standards, and we've got Carlos with us, and Carlos is going to share some of those experiences.
Hello.
Hey, Carlos.
Welcome, Carlos. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Thanks.
Carlos, could you briefly share with us what it is in detail that you're struggling with?
Yes. I have a thing that's a recurring pattern since I think around the end of high school, where I kind of put in all this, where I had these really high standards for myself in terms of writing, and so I would. That's where I kind of focused on, because my parents didn't have this. I wasn't raised with these parents that you have to be the best and you have to checking my schoolwork and all this stuff. But at my I remember the first occasion actually it happened where it was an AP class, and it was we were taking an AP class and there wasn't enough time to wrap it up. So there was a question that was really intriguing for me. So we took it home, and I just spent I don't know how many hours answering this question that should have been answered in minutes. And then my teacher kind of remarked upon it, saying that was a really incredible answer or something like that. Of course, it's taken God knows how long to do. And at that point, so it kind of worked in a way. So I got results from it, and I think that was kind of a trigger. And so all through college, I would do this thing where I would just spend, and then a part of it was actual intellectual curiosity. It wasn't just be the best or do this better. It was actually just I actually enjoyed it. But then it became this compulsive thing, and it's kind of followed me through work, and so I just I take so much time to do things, and I do get the results I want. The thing about it is it's not like this perfectionist thing where you're never satisfied. No, I do get to the point where I'm actually 100% satisfied with the work. But to get there, it just feels like it's taken way too much time and energy, and I always feel guilty about why it shouldn't be this way. This was way simpler than I made out to be. So it just so the only thing that works for me are deadlines, as with everybody. And when I have a deadline, so I always procrastinate until the very end, because I know if I don't, then I'll just spend an ungodly amount of time, and there's other things to do. So the only thing is to not sleep or whatever until I get it done. So physically it takes a toll. So it's become this compulsive pattern, and mostly focused in writing, because I am very forgiving of myself in other areas of my life, I think. But I've tried, I've never actually sought therapy for it. So even though it's, this is a bigger problem to resolve in, one session, I'm kind of looking for ways to think about how to proceed, what are the steps, like an overview of first, this would be good to do. And, should it be a therapy thing? I haven't found any ways to deal with it myself, just myself, I haven't, the stream of consciousness thing, the kind of jotting down ideas, the whole ways that you usually do to just get it out there. I'm always just editing as I go, as, 2 sentences, edit, then 2 more sentences, edit, as opposed to the whole thing, edit.
Can I just ask a quick question? So how much time do you actually spend in writing during the day? That's your job, right?
Yeah, but it's not every day that I have to, that I have big assignments or whatever. So I've usually had jobs where it's not the only thing. It's not like I'm just a writer, or, it's part of the jobs that I've done. Yeah.
And how many % of the time do you think you spend on writing?
I'd say maybe 20, 30%, and sometimes 30 to 50, depending on it varies a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It could get up to 50%. And so when I do have those assignments, then that's when it kind of kicks in.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Carlos. Okay. So Ken and I will now discuss the issue, and then we'll bring you back after we've talked about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. So as a therapist, I would always want to start with helping the client to shift towards a sense of curiosity about what's going on here versus whether there's judgment. So in other words, can Carlos begin to shift to the problem from a place of curiosity and from a place of learning, which it actually sounded like that's where he's at, which would be a good place to start.
Yeah.
And it sounds like to me, from what he presented, that he's starting to become aware of the costs as well as the benefit to the over preparation. In other words, it would be helpful, again, to really point out, what are those costs? Clearly, he's seeing that there's got to be a better way. He's identified some of the benefits, but I would also want to explore some of the costs, how it's affecting his sleep, how it's affecting relationships, how it's affecting his view of himself. That's probably where I'd want to begin from.
I really like the energy that he presented, in terms of that he said that it comes from a place of curiosity, not necessarily of wanting to be perfect. He just wants to find more information before he decides that this is a finished project. So, but then I would not want to know whether he also goes down rabbit holes, like, oh, then I found this, and then I found that, and then I found that. At some point you have to make a decision, okay, this is enough and I'm happy with this. So it would be interesting to see what his process is to actually come up with a point as to, okay, when I'm here, that then is enough.
And of course, the question as a therapist, is it enough, begs the question, is the over preparation, or is are the hours and hours of work into something that might take a shorter amount of time, a way for him to is a way for him to avoid having to deal with feelings of not being enough. And of course, this would be the deeper exploration if this is where we were to go. And is the over preparation or the high standard an attempt to avoid feeling mediocre? Again, that would be looking for some of the deeper core beliefs that he might be holding about himself. Is there a sense of comparing himself to others if the work isn't up to that standard? So that would also be a way that I would want to work with him or someone who's confronted with an issue similar to this.
Yeah, because so I just actually had a client today that she had a similar issue that I was coaching her through. The question is it really high standards, or does he just the curiosity that he was talking about, is it truly curiosity? Or like you were saying, is he judging himself by what standards, or by whom standards is he holding himself to? And if you go too much into the depth of the details, then you might lose the joy of things by actually enjoying the writing work. And it could also lead to loss of self-confidence and obviously the ability to get things done. He was saying that already. And I would want to know if he really has the passion that he could have, if he would just give himself a time window, not the day before the deadline, but actually make your own deadline prior to the actual deadline and knock it out the door, get it done. And also, if you're holding yourself to those high standards, if that's, as I said, still, is it really true? If it's the high standards, then do you have ability to grow? Because if you're always succeeding, you're not really growing. If you dare to send it out the door where you're like, ooh, it's not 1000%, I would actually challenge him to dare to be an 80%, do it at 80% and see how that lands for his boss or whoever he's sending the work to.
And of course, what is the over preparation? What is it trying to control? In other words, is it possible that his over preparation is about trying to eliminate uncertainty? And is it trying to control how others are going to react to the writing? And is he trying to gain control over something that he ultimately does not have control over, which is the reaction of of what he has written.
You could spend 10 hours on something and think now it's great, and then somebody else would always think that they just don't like your style of writing. You can't control that, like you were saying.
And has he set up the paradigm that the writing is either good or bad?
Mm.
In other words, is there a different paradigm that he might be willing to look at as far as, am I making progress? Like you said, am I growing?
Mm.
Is there improvement? Versus, does he come from a paradigm where there's success or failure?
And I find it also very interesting that he holds himself to high standards specifically on the writing. Where does that come from? Why just on the writing and not in other areas?
Right. It's interesting too, because he's had this since high school, so it's been around with him. So I'm reminded as I was listening to a neuroscientist talk about our thinking, and we're literally thinking 12 to 60,000 thoughts a day, and the next day we're literally thinking 90% of those same thoughts. And it seems that he's trying to solve something at this thinking level, and perhaps what also might be helpful is if he begins to have some awareness when he's in the editing, when he's in the moment of over preparing, if he can begin to slow that down and to get into his body and just begin to ask himself the question, can I do this in a way that would be more graceful, more supportive, have less of a cost to my overall health, physical or mental health, and what can I be comfortable with? And
yeah, I've done an exercise with clients when they are talking about their high standards. I would scan their body and say, basically walk them through. So when you're in that situation, can you just feel that feeling that you usually have when you're doing your over preparation? And where does this feeling sit in your body? Mm-hmm. And how does your neck feel like? Or how are your shoulders? Do you feel tense, or are you relaxed? How is your breathing? How is your heartbeat? So really scan your entire body for what senses do you have in there, and what energy comes with it. So basically going away from the thinking and the words and the language, but literally just feeling. And then when you're in that situation again, just feel deep into it and see if that really serves you, or if you can step into a different body by just relaxing more and do maybe a short 2-minute meditation, and see if that brings you out of this, oh my God, I have to read another 10 articles to make sure that I'm prepared well for this piece that I'm writing here.
So again, if we were to sort of sum up here, perhaps helping him to shift from a place of curiosity, a place to learn as much as he can about himself. Can we help Carlos to recognize how the over preparation, the amount of hours he's spending may have a benefit, but also to explore the costs? How is it affecting his mental health, physical health? Can he begin to slow down in the moment and create an awareness so that he has some more choice as far as how he wants to move forward? Can he get into his body, recognize where this sits in his body? Could he experiment with, as you mentioned, could I be okay and willing to send this out at 80 or 90%, and just to see what that balance might look like? Could I have success and also maintain some of my sanity and my health and my sleep?
Very good. Now let's bring Carlos back and see how some of this landed for him.
Hey, Carlos.
Hi.
Come back.
Yes.
So do you want to share what, obviously you were listening in, so how did some of the things that we talked about land for you?
Yeah, very good. I like the fact about just exploring what's underneath. If it's the sense of, you mentioned mediocrity, like, is it a fact of, are you just scared of being mediocre? Which is definitely, that really resonated with me. Is it really about mediocrity, or feeling, what are the core things behind that, right?
Yeah.
I really like that part. And I love the part about getting into your body, which I remember I actually read that was the part that most resonated for me in a book I read about assertiveness. I think it was called Not Nice. And I think it was one of the, I imagine that maybe that was coming from somewhere else. Like it was not just something like he came up with, but maybe just an idea in general that was around psychology and different ways about stop thinking about things and start feeling how are they affecting you and kind of focus on that. The more I can, something can help me stop thinking, the better, because I think it's just over rationalizing things.
And the thinking often and the worrying often is a way to actually avoid having to feel. It's actually a way to avoid having to experience the anxiety, the overthinking, problem solving. Is that it can be that attempt.
Another thing about who's the audience, or who are you writing this for, right? And that was a really intriguing question, because I think there is, to my mind, there's this ideal reader. It's not really who's going to be reading it, but there's this ideal reader that can only be satisfied if it's a certain way.
Right.
It's not even me. It's not me. It's interesting because it's not me and it's not the reader. It's someone else.
Right.
It's really kind of very removed from the practical nature of what it is you're writing for and about, right?
It's all that little voice in your head.
Yeah. It's trying to please some external thing. It's not my parents. It's not myself. It's not the reader. So it's like, where is this, fantasy reader, Do
you even get the feedback from that fantasy reader?
No. Well, the thing is, like, when I'm done with it, I have pleased that fantasy reader. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why it's done. Like,
how do you know?
No, it actually is done. Like, when I send it, it's not like I'm never satisfied. No, when I send it out, it is actually 100% the way I want it.
Okay.
And the way the reader wants it. And it usually yields results. Like, nobody ever, and that's the thing about it. It's like the thing about growth, right? Like, what if you actually did it in a way that was practical and rational, and then allowed somebody to critique it? Or, I mean, usually, since it is for work situations, or even, it's not even school anymore. That's kind of where it started. But since it is for work situations, it's not like people are really going to critique you unless there's something really, wrong with it, something that's outside the scope of what you're doing, or inappropriate, or whatever. And it's never that, obviously. And usually they do really appreciate it, and I only get praise for it. So again, it keeps working. Like, it keeps, so, but again, where's the growth?
And at what cost to you?
Yeah.
Because clearly you're wanting some other way to move forward.
Yeah.
That isn't as taxing on your nervous system, mental health, physical health, sleep, etc.
Yeah, I don't know how to parcel it out too, because I guess maybe I could do the same process, but just like rationally. But the thing is, I know that if I start it earlier, then it's going to eat up my life for way longer amount of time. So I'm like, so I'm scared of starting it earlier. So there's this, like, I know what's going to happen. And so I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z, if I start this earlier. So the only thing I can do is to start it. It's never like right before. It'd still be like a couple of 3 days before, but that's what I'll only be doing for 2 or 3 days. Like, I can't do anything else.
Have you actually tried it to start really early? And
yes,
really tell you, since it's 2-3 days that you just said, I give you.
Yeah, and that's what happens is I'll have the same process going on, but for way longer, and so it'll eat up even more of my time. And then
my question would then be, why don't you value your own word to yourself?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, why isn't it, I guess I do value them, but then when I look at the first, draft of whatever it is I'm doing, well, not that I even get to a first draft, I get to the first paragraph, it'll just be so horrendous. And I'm like, ugh, it's like, I have to just go back and I'll just be very, hypercritical of it, and I won't even allow myself, like, that's the thing, is if I could just get the first draft out without looking back, that would be already a huge thing. And I've never been able to do that. That's
room for growth. So why don't you try that?
Yeah, it's going to have to do, like, I have tried, definitely. It just never works. Like, I can't, and that, I mean, I know what it is that I should be doing, and I've tried it, but it hasn't worked. And so, I guess I'd have to try it a lot more times.
I'm pretty sure when you tried the first time how to walk, you didn't give up after the first time, did you?
Yeah, no.
Right. What are you giving up too by spending the hours and hours and hours on something that you might be able to do in less time. What are you giving up in terms of relationships, in terms of your own joys that you could be doing in your life? Yeah, worth perhaps giving it a 90% and see if you got a similar result and you gains a little bit more time for you and your relationship.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to wrap that up. Thanks so much, Carlos, for joining us and being so open about your issue. And we hope to you guys out there watching that this was valuable, that you can take some tools and strategies away with you, and that it was helpful to see the issue being explored from both the perspective of a coach as well as a clinical psychologist. We have plenty of upcoming episodes on the way, so stay tuned and we will see you soon. So thanks so much.
If you like this conversation, please leave us a comment, and also if you know somebody that might benefit from it, share the link with them, grab a coffee and talk about it.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.